Temos o prazer de anunciar o Painel, International Sleep Products Association, o mercado de colchões nos Estados Unidos. Esse painel abordará perspectivas sobre tendências, desafios e oportunidades, negócios e sustentabilidade no mercado de colchões nos Estados Unidos. Este será um momento enriquecedor para todos nós, com insights valiosos sobre um dos mercados mais influentes no setor colchoeiro. Convido para subir ao palco os nossos ilustres convidados. Senhor Rogério Soares Coelho, presidente da gestão 2020-2022 da Abicol. Rogério, além de membro do Conselho de Ética, é coordenador da Comissão de Normas e Certificações da Abicol. Eu peço os aplausos de vocês para o nosso convidado. Mr. Ryan Trainer, presidente na International Sleep Products Association e da Mattress Recycling Council, seu trabalho é dedicado a proteger e melhorar o crescimento, a rentabilidade e a posição da indústria de colchões nos Estados Unidos. Por favor, os aplausos de vocês. E senhora Inalva Corsi, ela é jornalista com 35 anos de atuação no setor moveleiro, colchoeiro, é editora da revista Móveis de Valor e Anuário de Colchões e diretora do Instituto Impulso, e será a mediadora desse nosso painel. Eu passo a palavra, portanto, para a Inalva, desejando a vocês um excelente painel. Até breve.
Bom dia a todos. Depois de um dia intenso como ontem, né? Vamos sentar, por favor, Mr. Ryan? Okay. Just a moment. Eu vou passar a palavra ao Mr. Ryan. Mr. Ryan vai comandar esse painel primeiro, depois o Rogério faz algumas perguntas e a gente vai fazer um bate-papo aqui. Ok? Please.
Bom dia. I want to begin by saying thank you very much for including me in this important meeting. It's really wonderful to be here and hear all the other speakers. But this is especially important for me personally for two reasons. Number one, I get to see my friends at Abacol again. And number two, because Brazil is very important to me and to my family. So thank you for including us. Today, I want to cover three topics. I want to talk about the U.S. market, not only the numbers, but also some of the economic factors and some of the consumer factors that are influencing our market and perhaps what will happen in the future. Second, I would like to talk about some of the regulatory issues that we face in the United States. And third, I would like to finish with a discussion of what we are doing as an industry and as a country on sustainability. So with that, I want to start with three important points that are very influential in terms of what drive sales of mattresses in the United States. We know from the economic data that if consumers' disposable income is good, if the housing market is strong, and consumers' perception of their wealth, how happy are they with their future and their savings? If all three of those are going well, then it's a good market for us. If one of those is weak, it's a so-so market, and if all of them are down, it's a bad market for us. So let's keep those 3 points in mind. Let's look at the numbers first. We just released our numbers for 2023, and 2023 was not a good year for us. Our sales in terms of total market, which is around 40 million units or about $10 billion at wholesale. The units were down by 8%, and the total dollar value at wholesale was down by nearly 7%. So that was not a good market for us. And as I will talk about in a moment, we don't expect that to change significantly in 2024. Hopefully 2025 will get better for us. These numbers suggest that the lower end of the price range is affected most. When you have units falling faster than the dollars, that means that the lower part of the market is in trouble. The more middle part and the luxury part are doing better. So what are some of the economic conditions that are affecting the purchasing? Even though the nominal wage is going up, the real wage has had some trouble because of inflation. The orange line shows our inflation rate in the United States, and the blue line shows the average household income. As you can see, since 2020 with COVID, the income levels have fallen due to inflation. We also have historically high interest rates for us. These are the highest rates that we've seen in probably 35, 40 years. Right now, in order for a consumer to buy a home, they would need to pay something in the range of 8 to 9% for a new home. And as a result, the housing market has really declined over the last several years. And in the United States, when people move, they usually many times they will buy a new mattress. And so the housing market is an important trigger for buying mattresses for our country. We also have the consumer is worried about the future. Pre-COVID, the consumer confidence rate was very high, 98, 96%. Now that number has fallen. In 2022, it fell down to 59. It's slowly coming up, but it certainly is not at the pre-COVID levels. So we have real wages falling, and we have the consumer being concerned about the future. One of the big issues that we talk about in the United States is, are we facing a recession, or will we have what we call a soft landing? This chart shows the unemployment rate, the blue line, which is at very low rates for us, and the orange line is the labor participation rate. And that means how many people are in the labor market working. And if the labor participation rate is high and the unemployment rate is low, that suggests a very strong labor economy. So at the moment, we are doing well on the labor front. But many economists are worried, will that change in the future? On this chart, the orange line shows Americans' credit card debt, and the blue line shows consumer spending. Before COVID, you'll see that the credit card debt was very high relative to consumer spending, and now you can see that the two lines are converging. Many economists are concerned that the rising debt for the American consumer will mean that they will stop purchasing big items like a mattress or a car and so forth. So this is a trend that is concerning to economists. This is a brief snapshot of what the economic forecast is for the United States. This report was prepared by economists with the University of Michigan, which is a very well-respected university in the United States for economic forecasting. If you look at the housing resales, if you look at the middle of the chart, you can see that the housing market is expected to remain weak through 2024 and will improve perhaps in 2025. We're hopeful about that. That is a very critical number for us, because if the housing market is bad, mattress sales are bad. And what will determine the future of the housing market is interest rates. The day before yesterday, our central bank announced that perhaps we will be reducing interest rates in the United States toward the end of the year. That would be very good news for the mattress industry, because that will be very good news for our housing sector. So during COVID, we experienced a very unusual period. Perhaps you had the same experience here in Brazil. Consumer demand for bedding increased as consumers stayed home and reduced their expenditures on other services. Online sales of mattresses and other products grew significantly. U.S. production and imports were affected, were constrained by supply chain disruptions and labor shortages. That created cost increases as well as disruptions. And then the mattress producers had to absorb those cost increases in their balance sheets. Since COVID, the consumers have shifted from buying goods to buying more services. During COVID, many consumers replaced their beds more quickly, and that disrupted the normal replacement cycle. I think that part of the depression in the mattress industry is a reflection of this phenomena, where the consumer that was buying would ordinarily have bought a mattress today, bought it 2 years ago. And so we are missing those sales today. Fortunately, though, this chart shows that raw material prices are starting to moderate. So if raw material prices are moderating, that gives more certainty to our producers moving forward. One of the statistics that we track in the United States is per capita consumption of mattresses. And this chart very dramatically shows the blue line shows dollars, and the orange line shows units of mattresses. And you can see that over the last 5 years, the number of mattresses bought per consumer has fallen significantly. Again, this is tied to high interest rates and the bad housing market. One of the other factors that affects the U.S. market is trade. In the past, imports of finished mattresses amounted to roughly 30% of our market. Today, it's in the 20% or lower range. And part of that is because the U.S. producers have been very aggressive in filing complaints, anti-dumping and subsidy complaints against foreign producers. This began in 2018 with a case against China, and it was followed in 2020 with a case against about 9 other countries, and in 2023 there was another batch of cases that was brought. Those cases are still going on. This has really changed the whole import environment in the United States. This chart shows the changes in market share over time between different regions of the world. So, for example, China is the very dark blue in the upper left corner. Up until 2019, China was the vast majority of imports. As you can see, China is almost zero at this point. And then as different countries were excluded from the United States as a result of the anti-dumping cases, other countries came in, then other cases were filed, and so you can see this churning of the water, that the sources of our imports have changed dramatically. This has had a very disruptive effect on supply chains, but it has been beneficial to the U.S. industry because it's removed a little bit of the import competition. So what are the current dynamics in the U.S. market? Many mattress brands and retailers are increasingly pursuing multi-channel marketing efforts. And by that I mean they are selling not only through traditional brick and mortar stores, but also through the internet. And they are doing it through both avenues. The consumer may research the product online and then go into the store to feel it and make the actual purchase, or the reverse. So the retailer, the brands in the United States feel that they need to be everywhere all at once in order to get the attention of the consumer. Secondly, online sales remain important in the U.S. market, but their importance has diminished a little bit since COVID. Consumers are back out in the cities. They're going to the stores. They're not just locked up in their homes buying everything online. In the United States, we have our bases can be stationary bases, or they can be adjustable bases. I'm sure you have the same in Brazil. Adjustable bases are really becoming very, very popular in the United States. That's good for the manufacturer. It's good for the retailer because it raises the total sales ticket. We're also seeing a lot of mattress consolidation within the market as companies merge and consolidate through acquisitions. Unfortunately, some companies are in distress and have filed for or will soon file for bankruptcy. We know that. We also think that the import sources will change as the current set of anti-dumping cases are concluded. Part of that current set was concluded just earlier this week, and the investigation should be finalized by mid-August. So you may want to follow that. I think that will change the U.S. market further. One of the other dynamics is that consumers in the United States are trending toward larger and larger product. Part of it is we're an aging population and we need more space. Part of it is our homes are getting larger. And part of it is, I think, disposable income is rising for the consumer. So this chart shows the different sizes over time, and gradually consumers are moving to larger and larger products. One of the things that we do in the United States is we also track consumer trends. We want to understand what are the features of our products that consumers like, what is their experience in the store, what are the good things about the retail experience, what are the bad things about the retail experience. We want to also impress upon the consumer the importance of sleep to a good night, to a healthy life. And I must compliment Brazil. Your vice president yesterday was very, very good. I enjoyed hearing him. You're very fortunate that you have a doctor and you have somebody who is very articulate and can speak to the importance of sleep to health. I think that's wonderful. If only our vice president of the United States could say such intelligent and meaningful things, we would be very fortunate too. But one of the points I want to make here is the replacement cycle in the United States. We look at the consumer by age groups. And so we look at the consumer in the 18 to 35 range, 36 to 55, and over 56. And as you can see, the older consumer is holding on to the mattress for 12 years. The younger consumer is holding on to the mattress between 6 and 7 years. Now, why is that? Maybe the younger consumers are buying a lower quality mattress, but I think that the key here, though, is that the younger consumer is conditioned to think of products as having a shorter life or useful life. For example, our telephones, our computers. Many younger consumers are replacing their products faster than they wear out. And I think that sort of philosophy or attitude is coming through into the mattress industry. And I emphasize that because yesterday we talked about the importance of the useful life of our product for sustainability. That if we can build a product that will last longer, it will be more sustainable. But is that what the consumer wants? I think that's an important question that we really have to investigate is, will the consumer respond to a more durable product, or is the consumer wanting to throw away their product more frequently? And should we take that into account as we develop our sustainability policies? So I'll shift now to some of the regulatory issues. Unlike Brazil with your in-metro system, we don't have that in the United States. We have a combination of federal and state safety laws and other laws that govern the mattress industry. The most important one is our flammability laws. Mattresses can be very dangerous. People fall asleep smoking in bed, or children are playing with matches, or we can have candles in the bedroom that fall into the bed and ignite the product. And so we have two important safety standards in the United States that we've implemented to make our products resist fires much more. And those have been expensive for the industry, but they've been good for the industry. We also have state labeling laws. They're not as sophisticated as the product passport that we talked about yesterday, but they do provide the consumer with some general information about the content of the product. It also, in some states, you will also need to disclose to the consumer, is my product containing all new mattress materials, or does it contain used materials? Used materials are a very small part of our market right now, but you must disclose that to the consumer. More recently, we're getting involved in chemical restrictions. In the United States, there's a lot of concern about a family of chemicals called PFAS. It's used in textiles to prevent, to protect a garment from water or from stains. And some of that has been used historically in mattresses. Right now it's very low, but it's still something that we're very much involved with as these laws develop, because it could impose new testing obligations on our producers, as well as labeling obligations. All right, now I'll shift to sustainability. The most important sustainability topic for America, the American mattress industry, is recycling. We do this at the state level. We have 4 states that are requiring us right now to recycle mattresses: Connecticut, California, Rhode Island, and in January we think that Oregon will be coming on board as well. ISPA created a new company in 2013 called the Mattress Recycling Council, MRC. MRC is a nonprofit, and it runs these state mattress recycling laws. It's funded by a small fee that we collect from consumers when she buys a new mattress. The state government provides oversight over the program, but we run the program. We also have antitrust immunity so that we cannot be accused of price fixing when we collect the fee. We expect this program will grow over time. This past year, we've been involved in 4 states: Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, and Virginia. Our biggest problem at the moment is New York. We've been fighting with them. So far, we're winning, but we'll see what happens. One of the issues there is, does the consumer pay or does the industry pay? And so we're fighting hard to keep the program where the consumer pays the fee that funds our program, not the mattress producers. What we do is we pay for the collection, transport, and recycling of the mattresses. We also conduct research to understand, are there better ways to have a recycling program, how can we use automation? How can we simplify the process? We also want to find new and better markets for the materials that we recycle. We think that if the recycler can make more money on the used mattress materials, they will be more sustainable. We also work very hard to inform the consumer of what we're doing. We want the consumer to understand what happens to her old mattress when she discards it. We have probably about 5 or 10% of our budget is spent on public education. So here are the numbers. Since the program began in 2015, we've recycled more than 13 million units. We've diverted more than 13 million cubic yards of material from landfills, and we've recycled more than 500 million pounds of steel, foam, wood, and fabric. Today, we're able to recycle approximately 75% or more by weight of each mattress that comes into our facility. And this gives a distribution of what the raw materials are that comes out of the mattress. As you can see, the bulk of the material is steel, but foam is next. In the United States, we use a lot of wood in our box springs. They're very difficult. That wood is very difficult to recycle. And then the quilt panel toppers and all of the fabric. Those are also a big challenge for us. So we're spending some research on that. We've also looked at what is the environmental impact of our recycling process. And for one mattress, we save 500 gallons of water. That means that for every mattress we recycle, the materials that go back into the market avoid the consumption of 500 gallons of water. That saves enough energy as well to power the average home for 3 days, and it reduces the greenhouse gas emissions by an equivalent of driving 60 miles less per day. So it's important to know that for each mattress recycled, there are important environmental benefits. So what are some of the operational challenges we face? Number one, we're looking at how to try to automate our process. At this point, mattress recycling is very much a manual process. If we can automate the process, it will make the recyclers more efficient and will make the end product that much more valuable. We're trying to, as I mentioned, try to find new homes for the recycled materials. Polyurethane foam is especially important for us. It's a major component, but the current demand for polyurethane foam is falling. It's usually used in carpet pads, and I'll talk about in a moment some of the exciting research we're doing there. Pocketed coils are a product that we use in the United States frequently. In fact, the demand for pocketed coil product is rising, but it's a very difficult product to dismantle. So we're working with the producers and the component suppliers to identify new ways to use those materials. Adhesives are another issue. We need adhesives for our products to make sure that they hold together from the factory to the consumer and so that they don't fall apart in the consumer's home. But the adhesives can create major problems when you're trying to separate the goods for recycling. And so we're working with the recyclers and the adhesives producers to try to think of new ways to build their adhesives. Can you make them out of the same material as the materials that you're gluing together so that when you recycle them, it's all just one material? Or are there other things where the glues can be released through heat or through other means? So we're doing some research there. And finally, we're looking very carefully at fiber and fabric recycling. That's probably our biggest challenge because the blends that we use are extremely difficult to find new markets for. So as I mentioned, MRC does research to find new and better markets for our products. We spend roughly $1 million a year on this. We're looking at the rebond market to try to find new uses for these materials. Obviously, it's been used for carpet pad for a while, as I mentioned, but we're looking at how could those be used in mattresses again. They're starting to be used in Europe. We're also looking at possibly using them in upholstered furniture as well as automotive seating. We're also looking at taking the rebond foam and changing the surface characteristics of the product and trying to make them either more receptive to water, maybe more receptive to air, to oil, and certain other chemicals. We think that the rebonded foam could be used for oil spill cleanups. It could be used for filtration of smokestacks to remove harmful chemicals before they come out of the air, into the air. It could be used for a lot of other things. So we're working with some very brilliant scientists at a university in the United States called Arizona State University. They are looking at different ways to change the surface characteristics of our foam so that they can be used in a more smart way. We're also looking at a process called vitrumization. And I'm not a scientist, I never had heard that word before, but the scientists tell me that vitrumization is a process that can be used where we combine heat and pressure to change the structure of foam. Foam has lots of bubbles in it. And so the heat and pressure that we can use through vitrumization will break down those cells and create a rubber-like material. And we think that this rubber-like material could be used for many applications, for shoes, for cell phone covers, for flexible tubing. We're at the stage right now where we're trying to commercialize the product. And so hopefully in a year or so, we'll have more to report on that. This could be very exciting for us because it create a whole new market for this big material that we generate. We've also looked at whether we can take some of the other materials in mattresses, the fabric and fiber, and can we carbonize that and use the resulting carbon in other applications. One of the things that we're looking at is battery electrodes. As the world tries to decarbonize, move from gasoline engines to electric vehicles, there will be a tremendous demand for large capacity batteries. And perhaps dirty old mattresses could be a source for some of the battery components. We're very optimistic about that, and we're working hard on that as well. And then finally, it was interesting for me to learn that cement production is one of the bigger contributors to some of our climate problems. And we are looking at ways to make cement out of other materials, including used mattress materials. Scientists at the University of California in Los Angeles have developed a type of cement from using polyurethane that can be used for decorative applications, for sound barriers. We can't use it for structures. We couldn't build a building out of it, but much cement is used for non-structural purposes, and perhaps this could be one of our end markets. Some of our other activities that we at ISPA are conducting is we're helping to facilitate better communications throughout the entire value chain. So often, our communications are limited to our suppliers and our customers. The materials producers don't necessarily ever have any contact with the recyclers. And so we've created meetings where everyone in the value chain is able to talk about what some of the challenges are that we're facing. We have invited mattress manufacturers and component suppliers to come visit the recycling facilities. And it's really fascinating to see the lights go off in their eyes as they think, oh, if I could just change this little way of making my mattress, it will be much easier to recycle 10 years from now. So it's that type of communication, I think, that's important for us to move forward on sustainability. We've also created a couple of committees to talk about what are some of the new materials that are coming out. How are we going to recycle those 10 years from now? We don't want to discourage any of the innovation. We want the industry to continue to be very creative in producing new products that help consumers sleep better, help get rid of heat, help with other features that the consumer needs. But we need to understand, will those products cause challenges for us in 10 years? And we want to be ready for that. We also want to help our recyclers understand how will their product mix change? How will they be profitable 10 years from now? Do they need to worry about more foam customers or other factors? We're also focused on helping the industry develop products, machines that can be used to dismantle the product. We invested in a machine to help separate the steel from the pockets in a pocketed coil machine process as well, for example. And then we're also providing training to our recyclers to help them eliminate bottlenecks in their factories, as well as think of other ways to improve their operations. We also conduct research of the consumers' attitudes towards recycling and sustainability, as well as the retailers. And I think the retailer component is very important for us too, as we look at how do we make our industry more sustainable. Because the retailer is the key to opening the gate for the consumer. If the retailer doesn't do a good enough job about selling our products, many of the sustainable enhancements that we make could be wasted. Our research shows that a majority of retailers either don't understand the sustainability issues, don't understand the sustainability features in the product, or think that the consumer doesn't care about them. They're just looking at price. And so we can do all of the wonderful things we can think of to make our products more sustainable, but unless the retailer is persuaded that this is important and they can communicate that to the consumer, we may be wasting our time. So we need to involve not only the consumer, but also the retailer in our strategies. One other thing that we're doing is we've developed what we call the Sleep Product Sustainability Program, SP2. What I've talked about so far is how do we make our products more sustainable, but we also want to help our manufacturers be more sustainable. And so we work with them to develop self-improvement processes where they are continually evaluating how efficient am I with the water consumption in my plant. Am I looking at my electrical consumption properly? Can I improve what I'm doing? What am I doing with my waste materials? And this is a very good training process for not only the management, but also the people on the assembly line floor. Companies that have taken this very seriously have really built very strong teams throughout their manufacturing process to support the reduction of waste, the reduction of electrical consumption, and water consumption. So I've talked all about the recycling process and what we can do to help voluntarily make our industry more efficient from a sustainable perspective. But I want to briefly touch on a couple of other laws and regulations in the United States that we must comply with. First of all, both at the national level and soon at the California level, we will be dealing with laws that require us to, as companies, to disclose certain performance metrics for ESG. The national laws are subject to litigation right now, so they've been suspended. But the California laws will go into effect soon, and that will require some detailed reporting by some of our larger companies in the United States. Second, we're dealing with a number of what we call right to repair laws at various states. Most of the laws right now are dealing with our computers, our telephones, and to some extent our appliances, requiring that the product manufacturer provide information and replacement parts to the consumer. Some of these will have an effect on the mattress industry. For example, on our adjustable foundations, we probably have some obligations now, and probably this trend will grow so that perhaps 10 years from now, we will be required to provide replacement springs or replacement covers for consumers. That's something that we're watching very carefully. Our Federal Trade Commission has rules in terms of how we market our products. We must market them accurately. We must market them in a way that has scientific substantiation, scientific documentation behind them. Those are called anti-greenwashing laws. So those are rules that we are continually reminding our members that they have an obligation to meet. We also are looking at how states and the federal government might increase the product labeling obligations for disclosing PFAS, this chemical I mentioned, as well as fire retardants. And then finally, in Oregon, in 2027, we will be required to provide a life cycle analysis explaining all of the different types of materials and energy that goes into our mattresses. So that will be very interesting for us to view. In terms of policy changes, the issues that we're facing is who pays for recycling? Is it the consumer or is it the producer? Right now, in the recycling programs we have, it's the consumer who pays, but this will be a constant battle for us going forward. Design for recycling criteria. Frederick mentioned that yesterday in terms of what the EU is doing from a design for recycling perspective. We will probably be facing pressures from our government as well in that regard. We see that there is a trend to de-spec certain materials. We're very concerned that the governments may ban the use of certain materials such as adhesives or other materials. We want to resist that. We want to have the ability to make our choices. We need to understand what our performance goals should be, but we don't want to be limited in terms of the materials we're using. We're also following very carefully what's going on in the EU with regard to product passports. We see many of the advantages, but we have concerns from a privacy standpoint, from a data maintenance standpoint, and we also don't know what the government will want to do with that information later. So that's something we're looking at. We are facing increasing pressure in the United States to have recycled content in our products. And that may look good on the surface, but it may not be economically sound, and it may not be environmentally positive. So we want to have as much of our decision-making as possible being dictated by science and by the economy, as opposed to legislators or government officials. And finally, in the United States, we are faced with many states that restrict what's called advanced recycling, chemical recycling, where you take the foam, for example, and break it down through heat and other means to the basic raw materials. In Europe, that option is being pursued very aggressively, and I think they're coming up with some big improvements in the process, and I look forward to seeing what happens there. In the United States, though, the environmentalists are very resistant to that, and so that's one of the policy challenges we're facing. So I'll conclude by noting that we have a sustainability conference every year. This will be our third sustainability conference. It will be in September in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I would enjoy having all of my Abaco friends come visit us if you're interested. We have a really good program planned. We'll be talking about some of the things that MRC is doing. We'll have training sessions on how to learn about circular design principles. We'll be having companies talk about their experiences in the sustainability area. We'll talk about the greenwashing rules. We'll be talking about how we certify our products for various sustainability seals and approvals. And so I encourage you to come and be part of the conversation if that's of interest to you. So with that, I thank you very much for listening to me, and I've really enjoyed your conference very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan, for your excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Eu vou passar ao Rogério para fazer umas perguntas ao Mr. Ryan. Depois a gente volta a conversar um pouquinho mais.
Bom, Ryan, eu acho que a gente vai precisar de umas 2h30, porque é muita informação. A gente fica muito grato por ter esse nível de informação. Uma situação que a gente tem percebido na sua apresentação e também ontem na apresentação do Frederick, seria essa questão de a reutilização de colchões, right to repair. Como que a indústria, como a ISPA vê isso e como o consumidor americano vê essa questão de uma possibilidade dele comprar talvez um colchão já utilizado? Como a indústria vê e como o consumidor vê?
It's a very complicated subject for us. ISPA was created in 1915 for the very purpose of regulating the use of old material in mattresses. In 1915, some mattress producers were using old materials, and they were not clean, they were not healthy. And so, as a result, there are many laws in the United States that restrict the use of used materials. So we go forward 100 plus years, and now recycled content is important for us. And so ISPA is at a point where I think we'll begin advocating for some changes to the old rules. We still don't want unhealthy product. We still want to make sure that the consumer is getting something that's clean. But we will be changing, I think we will be advocating for changes to those rules to allow for clean recycled material to come in. I think that's necessary in order for our industry to become more sustainable. But that will take some time because most of these rules are state-level rules. We have about 30 states with these rules in their laws, and so that will take some time to do. In terms of the right to repair, probably in Brazil, you already have this too, where you have zip-on covers, where the consumer can zip off the top fabric layer and replace that. And then we also allow the consumer to replace their own interior materials sometimes. So that is already going on. But in terms of the consumer buying used material, they can buy used material, but it has a label on it that says a used mattress. And usually that is a big discouragement to the consumer.
Ok. Em relação a rebounding, o aglomerado de espuma, como nós tratamos no Brasil, que seria uma utilização da espuma, nos Estados Unidos, a maior parte, como você falou, é utilizado no carpete. Qual é o outro, se já existe um uso da espuma, do aglomerado, do rebounding, dentro dos colchões de uma forma mais significativa hoje nos Estados Unidos?
Right. So currently, in the United States, a mattress manufacturer could use rebounded foam only if it's post-industrial foam. So at the producer, the trim that is taken off the foam, if that is used to make rebounded foam, currently that could be used in a mattress. Post-consumer foam, though, could not be used because that would be considered used material. Post-industrial foam would be considered new material. In Europe, I think the rules are different. I think that post-consumer foam is being used in some mattresses. But that's one of the things where we would need to change the laws in the United States.
A lei não permite o uso dessa espuma. Seria isso? A lei não permite o uso dessa espuma reutilizada.
It's not allowed in a new mattress. It could be allowed in a mattress that is labeled used, but most consumers won't want that. And so our idea is to change the law to say it's made of used or clean recycled material. And that way the consumer would be assured that she's buying a safe material.
Em relação ao caso de dumping, a primeira ação foi em 2018. É uma preocupação nossa aqui também no Brasil. Existe algum sinal que isso iria acontecer? Isso que eu quero dizer, a invasão de colchões, que a ISPA não percebeu naquele momento e depois ela foi capaz de ver, nós deveríamos ter percebido que algo ia acontecer. O ponto que eu quero dizer é o seguinte, algo começou em 2015, 2014, que a ISPA não viu. Depois ela tem ciência. Aquilo está acontecendo, eu devia ter visto. Tem algum sinal que você vê isso no mercado?
Okay. Before I answer that question, I want to make one point clear. ISPA was not a party in those cases. Those cases were brought by, I think, 9 producers and 2 labor unions. We provided information. We provided information to both sides, but we did not pay for the lawyers and so forth. So I just want to be completely clear on that. In terms of warning signals, I think the warning signals is market share increasing? Is the average price falling? Are the domestic producers losing business? Are they becoming less profitable? Are they laying off workers? Under the U.S. laws, those are all factors that the government authorities take into account in deciding should we impose higher duties and how much should those duties be?
De uma forma geral, nos estados que já estão fazendo, né, o buy mattress, o consumidor ele enxerga ou ele percebe que esse custo a mais que ele paga para tratar o colchão de uma forma ecologicamente correta, ele recebe isso de uma forma positiva. Estou falando o consumidor, não o retailer. Ele percebe isso como uma forma positiva ou existe resistência do consumidor?
That's the heart of the problem. And I'm happy to share our research with you. It's all in English, but I imagine that the Brazilian consumer is similar to the American consumer. I can make that available to you. The the average consumer wants a more sustainable product if it doesn't cost anything more. We have probably 10 to 20% of the consumers who say that they are willing to pay more for a more sustainable product. And for them, a more sustainable product usually means a product made from natural materials. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's more easily recycled or that less carbon was consumed in producing that material. Many consumers also don't care. There's probably a good third of the market that says, I'm just looking for the lowest price. So there is a broad range of consumer attitudes that we have to be aware of, and there's a big job that we have in terms of consumer education, that sustainability, yes, it includes, is the material natural or renewable, but there are other aspects to being sustainable than beyond that. And so I'm happy to share that research with you, and you can see if it's relevant to the Brazilian market.
Quando a gente fala na questão de você trazer o colchão para ser um ecodesign de um colchão, se tem a impressão que ele tende a passar por uma simplificação. Maior uso de molas, menor uso de espuma, uso de capas, covers. A indústria, a ISPA, os industriais americanos, eles têm essa percepção que no futuro, em algum momento, esses colchões vão passar por uma simplificação na sua construção, na sua aparência, e, principalmente, você começa a ter, talvez, uma estandartização dos produtos apresentados. Eles seriam muito próximos e parecidos. Qual que é a visão da indústria americana sobre isso?
Okay. It's a very complicated subject, and there's no single solution in my mind that applies to everything. Certainly, we can reduce the number of materials or the amount of materials that we have in our products. That will create a smaller environmental footprint for us. But I think we need to keep in our vision the purpose of our products. As the Vice President said yesterday, the purpose of our products is to allow us to renew, to have rest, to be ourselves sustainable and healthy. And so some consumers need more support for their back. Some consumers have snoring issues or other issues of tossing and turning in the bed and waking up their partner. Other consumers may have heat issues. And so our industry is a very creative industry. We look at the consumer's needs and we build products that differentiate for that. And so I personally think we should resist efforts to make our products standardized. It's not water. We're selling a very personal product that has a very important purpose. And so I think having differences in our products is good for the consumer. Having said that, though, I think sustainability is not a problem that one company can solve or that one segment can solve. It takes a village to make a more sustainable mattress. We need good communications from the foam producers, from the chemical producers, to the recyclers, and the consumer and the retailer in between. We all need to talk about, what are we looking for in our product? Do we try to make our fabrics just of one fiber instead of blends? Do we try to modify the adhesives we use so that they are easier to debond? How can we change our products so that we are consuming less and thinking of the end of life?
Quando nós, industriais, construímos um produto, vamos dizer assim, a palavra qualidade talvez não caiba, mas um produto mais bem construído, com uma visão ecológica, se tem a ideia que você troca menos. Ao se trocar menos por aquele produto, ter uma performance igual durante o maior tempo, nós estamos afetando a nossa indústria. Você diminui o seu tempo de reposição. Isso também é claro para vocês, porque aconteceu algo similar no Brasil. Quando houve da certificação dos colchões obrigatórias pelo Inmetro, a qualidade do produto aumentou. Então, o consumidor troca menos porque ele tem um produto melhor. Me parece também que se caminha para esse lado na parte ecológica. E essa visão é compartilhada também pela ISPA, que o tempo de troca vai se alongar de uma forma cada vez maior?
I agree with you. There is this tension between wanting to sell more units, but also the pressure from government authorities, from consumers to make a more durable product. And so we need to resolve how that tension works. The viewpoint I take is to be a realist, that the government is going to be requiring us to be more sustainable over time. And so we need to be thinking about how do we anticipate the government's next moves in the game. And yes, that can have an impact on our future sales in terms of unit sales. But the one slide I showed you with the different age groups, yes. I think that's something that's important for us to recognize too, is that we can build a 50-year mattress, but if my children want the best thing, the newest feature 5 years from now, I may have wasted 45 years there. And so we need to be understanding the consumer's attitude and thinking about that as we build our products. The other thing we have going for us, I think, is that ours are very much a long-term durable product. And so it's not like the light bulb industry, when you change from one technology to the next and you have to change overnight. Ours changes over a longer period. And so it gives us time to adjust our financial planning, adjust our supply chains, adjust our mentality to the new world.
Okay. Bom, para finalizar, você agora está se aposentando. O Ryan
yes.
está se aposentando. É um homem feliz, né? And Laurie, too. A minha pergunta agora é em relação à associação, a ISPA. Qual o conselho que você dá para nós, industriais, que estamos aqui na Abicol, que é uma entidade jovem, o que a indústria espera da ISPA, da associação? Não o contrário, não o que a associação espera dos industriais. Quando eu falo, a associação seria os membros diretores da associação. O que você é o mais flagrante para você, o que os associados esperam e querem da ISPA?
I don't think things will change very much. I'm very happy with my successor. I think you will enjoy meeting her. She will be starting in August with ISPA. She comes from outside the mattress industry, so she will need some time to understand who the companies are. She visited Expo in March, so she has a bit of an understanding. I'll be helping her learn what our industry is made of. But she's very intelligent. She's worked with other industries in the past, and most importantly, she's worked on important sustainability issues. So I think that she needs probably 6 months to 9 months to familiarize herself with the details here, but I think she will be able to continue and enhance what we're doing. She's well supported by our board, and I don't think that there will be any major changes. One of the wonderful things we have at ISPA is we have a very cohesive team of players, and that will not change. The new leader appreciates the value of the team that we have, so I think we have a new captain, and she will have her own course, of course, but I think that we will go in the same direction. I think we will have a global attitude. We understand that we are parts of a bigger puzzle, and so we want to include everybody in the whole picture. I think that we have a lot to gain from these types of relationships. I anticipate that will continue.
E a última pergunta existe você sente ou sentiu alguma dificuldade em obter informações das empresas associadas da ISPA em relação à produção, a valores de faturamento? Porque nos impressiona o volume de informações que vocês têm. E a gente sente um pouco no Brasil, talvez, uma dificuldade das empresas entenderem que não, esse dado, quando ele está junto, ele não é só meu, todos ganham. Essa dificuldade vocês têm lá ou a cultura associativa americana já venceu esse espaço?
It's a challenge. Number one, it's confidential information, and so there's a trust factor. We have the benefit of having collected this type of information that I presented for over 40 years. And so most of our members appreciate the fact that, number one, we use an external party to collect and tabulate the information. I will never see company-specific information, and we make that very clear. So we have confidence that their information will be protected. And number two, there's a shared understanding that, yes, I'm competing with other people in the industry, and I want to take their market, but we all need to understand what the market is like. And so there's a shared responsibility to provide information for the benefit of the whole. But I know that it's increasingly competitive in our market, and it's a constant part of my job to persuade people, yes, please keep providing data. It's a big challenge. And I've read articles, too, that even at the government level, when the government produces statistics for labor or production, the participation rate in the surveys is declining over time. So it's a constant challenge.
Nova?
Excelente, Rogério. Agora eu queria que você colocasse para a gente, diante de tudo que o Mr. Ryan falou, um pouco de como está o Brasil nessa preocupação com sustentabilidade, e quais são os nossos desafios, considerando que também somos um país muito grande e temos aqui as nossas dificuldades muitas parecidas com os Estados Unidos, possivelmente.
Bom, a sustentabilidade no colchão, ela passa basicamente sobre dois fatores, dois produtos, no meu ponto de vista. Três: os tecidos, como foi dito, e essa parte nós temos a possibilidade de andar rápido, porque os maiores players trazem essa tecnologia de fora. Nós temos as questões das molas, e aí passa por uma outra situação. Infelizmente, o fio de aço que é utilizado nas nossas molas, ele não tem origem de um aço reciclado. Então, isso é algo que talvez, eu já comentei com alguns fornecedores, é algo que terá que se mudar. Porque, se você pega um aço virgem, você tem uma pegada de carbono. Se você pega um aço que foi reciclado, você tem outra pegada de carbono. Pode haver aí, pelo que me parece, um aumento de custo ligeiramente? Pode, parece que sim, mas é algo inevitável. O terceiro ponto são as espumas. E o Brasil é um país onde o consumo de espuma de colchões nós sabemos que é muito alto. A Abicol está fazendo, junto com o Dr. Diego, um trabalho.
Dr.
Diogo, onde nós pegamos a espuma de reuso e fizemos vários testes para depois que se faz o aglomerado. Fizemos o rebounding da espuma e colocamos no aglomerado. Todos nós sabemos que o TDI é algo extremamente punk. Então, para quê? Para que a gente tenha certeza que aquele produto é um produto estéril. E, incrivelmente, nós já esperávamos, a espuma, depois que pegou feito o aglomerado e se faz o teste, ela é estéril. Quando eu falo teste, foram feitos testes científicos, isso vai ser um trabalho que vai ser apresentado. Então, na minha concepção, na concepção da diretoria da Abicol, como nós já falamos, vai se passar necessariamente, principalmente no Brasil, no uso dessa espuma. Se eu consigo comprovar para os órgãos reguladores que aquela espuma é estéril, eu não tenho um problema, porque nós não usamos, no Brasil nós não usamos carpete, é raríssimo. Então, a espuma ela sobraria. Então, eu acho que vai passar por aí, entendeu? Tecidos, de uma fibra, aço cada vez mais preferencialmente reciclado, e a utilização do aglomerado de espuma de uma forma mais... Porque hoje a gente vê o aglomerado de espuma sendo usado no Brasil, naquele colchão com meio de aglomerado, um pouquinho de espuma aqui, um pouquinho de espuma aqui, como um produto meio patinho feio. Eu só tenho para isso daqui. Eu acho que não, ele vai mudar um pouquinho. Então, essa seria a minha visão.
Tá certo. Temos aí uma árdua jornada pela frente, né? Bom, eu acho que a gente teria muitas outras perguntas, mas vamos agilizar aqui. Eu queria, para encerrar, pedir ao Mr. Ryan que fizesse as suas considerações finais e que, nessas considerações, colocasse para a gente quais são os principais legados que o senhor deixa, né, para a indústria americana após essa vida dedicada aos colchões.
Well, I hope I'm leaving it better than it was before. We have a very rich history at ISPA. I'm really very proud of what we did on sustainability and recycling. Recycling has been a challenge for our industry for many, many years. What do you do with the old mattress? And I have to tell you, I've been very blessed to have many good jobs in my life, and I'm leaving with the best job I've ever had. And it's just been exciting to be part of this industry and to create a solution to an old problem and to see it grow. So I wish I was a younger man. I'm not. So it's now time to have somebody else take over, but that's been the most fun I've had in my whole career. So I guess that would be what I hope is my legacy.
Obrigada. E nós estamos muito felizes de ter o senhor aqui nesse momento de quase encerramento da sua carreira. É uma honra para a indústria brasileira, né, Rogério? E as suas considerações, por favor.
Thank you.
Então, na realidade, é só realmente agradecer o Ryan. Eu acho que foi uma interação, uma parceria muito interessante, e ela correu de uma forma muito fluida, né? E agora nós estamos começando com o pessoal da Europa, pessoal da Turquia. Eu acho que é uma mudança na cabeça dos industriais do Brasil. Então, isso, para nós, é muito bom. Então, só tenho a agradecer. E venha ao Brasil mais vezes com a Laurie nos visitar.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Obrigada a todos.
Thank you.
Voltamos agora com a nossa mestre de cerimônia.
Thank you.
Eu aproveito esse momento do nosso registro, da nossa foto, para agradecer a participação de todos os nossos painelistas, agradecer pelas valiosas contribuições e desejar uma excelente aposentadoria ao Sr. Ryan.